What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 3 and Out YouTube page. I'm John Middlekauff, and we are talking football all day, every day. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends. Let's roll, baby. Okay, let's do a little Fugazi Friday mailbag. At John Middlekauff, Instagram, fire into those DMs. Big fan of the show. Watch it on the YouTube for a while. As a diehard Eagles fan, I feel like we are honestly in a bad spot coaching-wise. Fangio and Kellen Moore both obviously have long-term head coaching aspirations. And if we have an 8 out of 10 season, as in we lose in the divisional or NFC title game, I think losing in the NFC title game is better than 8 out of 10. It's obviously not a 10 out of 10. If winning the Super Bowl is an 11 out of 10, making to the Super Bowl is probably a 9.5. I'd say making to the NFC Championship game at minimum is 8.5, 9. As someone who worked there and assuming a decent season and not a total collapse, when obviously Sirianni would be canned, how do you think the best way to handle head coaching position is going forward? Do you think we have a standout offense this year? There's any chance Lurie would evaluate Kellen Moore and get rid of Sirianni, or same with Fangio if the defense is elite? One thing you said about Fangio having head coaching aspirations, like I think those days are done. I think Fangio and head coaching, that ship has sailed. He got a shot a little later in life, and it didn't even come remotely close to working. Vic Fangio's never going to be another head coach in the NFL. I feel pretty confident saying that. And I'm a Vic Fangio guy. I think excellent hire for you guys. But I don't think you have to worry about him. I think the question mark is the head coach and the offensive coordinator. And if the offensive coordinator has a lot of success with Jalen, with the offense, they're explosive, spend a lot of money on these cats, it's a pretty natural transition if they feel comfortable with him kind of leading the group, right? Which they'd have to, I guess, project a little bit, but I would say that he would have a strong chance. And I was texting with someone the other night, a buddy of mine, about Hard Knocks. And maybe I mentioned this also on a previous mailbag, but who would I hire? Like if I was just needed a coach this offseason based on what we know right now. I think I'd hire Mike Vrabel. I'd hire Vrabel over Belichick in the sense of he's just way younger. And I'm a Belichick supporter, and people that act like he's the village idiot now, I think, are complete morons. But it is going to be 2025. I mean, the guy got in the league in 1975. So I would lean Vrabel. If the Harbaugh bros, if Tomlin, Dan Campbell, like I'm pretty confident Vrabel can be a good head coach. Obviously, in a perfect world, you hire the next McVay or Shanahan. But I don't know. I mean, Ben Johnson seems terrified to be a head coach. How could I hire that guy? Play scared. I dare you to take that Chargers bet. You'll lose your money. They have 0 weapons. I love it when someone threatens you when you publicly say you're going to make a bet. Like, I dare you to take that bet. Like, guys, I've been gambling for, I don't know, almost 25 years. If you count sneaking into the Indian casino when I was like 15, 16 years old. Been gambling on sports now for 15 plus. You lose bets. It's part of the deal. It's part of the fun. Get your juices flowing. You don't win them all. Hell, you're a legend if you hit like 55% of your sports betting. So yeah, I could bet. Could lose the money. Also could win it. It's part of why you gamble. I think there's nothing stupider than that one. Like, I dare you to do that. No, I'm going to do it. Or I was until Herbert got hurt. Now it kind of freaked me out. But like, you have to understand when you gamble, you're not afraid to lose the money. Part of gambling. If I didn't want to lose the money, I wouldn't gamble it. I know you aren't a fan of betting on season wins or division winners. I might change my tune. I think I'm going to do it this year. I got a couple that I'm looking at. The Bills, the Saints, and those Fresno State Bulldogs. Also tempted to dabble a little on Oregon to win the Natty. I kind of want to have a long-term team to win the Natty, but I don't know. Haven't decided on that one. There seems to be a lot of juice in a lot of these odds compared to the MVP or comeback player of the year. A lot of winners of the award never seem very chalky either. Even parlaying the team to make the playoffs with the coach of the year seems like a worthwhile long bet. For example, Doug Peterson winning coach of the year doesn't seem like a stretch. Parlay it with the Jags to make the playoffs, and it would turn $50 into $8,000. Thanks. If you ever land in New Zealand, you will love Tasmania. Plenty of top links golf courses there. Yeah, with shit. Love links golf. I do think it's difficult, right? Like, think about last year. Who won coach of the year? Stefanski. Well, they didn't win the division. Who won it the year before? I know what you're saying, and trust me, no one loves a $50 bet to win $8,000 like your boy. I couldn't bet on golf, just like get super aggressive. So I put $150 and I did two $50 parlays, or actually, I think a $75, a $25, and a $50 parlay. One was 19K, one was 12K, and one was 8K. I need Max Homa to play well this weekend. I wouldn't mind Tommy Fleetwood winning either. Or Morikawa and Billy Horschel top 10s and top 20s. But I think it sounds a lot easier with that strategy than it actually working. Because when you just look at the last two winners, Dayball and Stefanski, they didn't even come close to winning their division. I mean, a couple years ago, the Giants, Dayball was the right choice. How many games did the Eagles? What was the difference? What were they, 9-8? What did the Eagles go? Like, were they 14-3 that year? You're talking about 5-game difference. So I hear you, and it sounds great when you say it out loud, and it sounds even better. You go to DraftKings and you type in the two. You're like, holy shit, 50 to win 8 Gs? And then you're like, what's the likelihood of this happening? It's just not very high. Multi-year listener, longtime fan. Got a question that might stir up the listeners. Woo-hoo-hoo! I go on Twitter and everyone acts is about CJ Stroud. Like it's a no-brainer. He's throwing 5,000 yards and 50 TDs. Let me remind you, he had 23 touchdowns last year, and 5 came in one game. Let's throw in the 5 to 10% chance that Diggs ruins chemistry. I know we like the player and love the coach, but can we damper the expectations for this guy? They bolstered the run game with Mixon and won't have to be in shootouts. How do these outrageous predictions make you feel? It's a good question. I think Tank Dell is... I'd put his over-under on touchdowns, assuming he plays 17 games, at like 30. But I'm with you. People acting like it's going to be 50. The other thing is D'Amico has said, I've seen him say this multiple times, Diggs will not ruin our chemistry. AKA, it gets weird, we will cut him. Like, there is no rope here. There is no margin for, he's having a rough week here with the boys. That ain't going to fly. It ain't going to fly with D'Amico, and it's not going to fly with Caserio. They took a relatively low-risk situation, but I do not envision them letting him cause problems. Now, it's part of taking him in. He gets emotional. I will say this about Diggs. For an emotional player that a lot of people think is kind of crazy, he has been a winning player. He was part of winners. He won in Minnesota. He won in Buffalo as one of the better players on the team. So sometimes you get these guys that have this negative kind of just aura, as I think the kids are saying, this negative reputation, and they're just losers because they've been around losing and that's who they are. This guy's kind of a winner. Not Super Bowl championships, but like this guy's going to the playoffs this guy's playing in a ton of big games. I went to the Niners-Vikings playoff game in 2000, what year was that? 2020? First drive of the game. Pass to Diggs, PI to Diggs, touchdown Diggs. Only points they scored all game. It was like bang, bang, boom. It's like, ugh. how are the Niners going to cover this guy? He's I wouldn't worry as much about him. Because one, I think he's either got to shape in or he shapes out. There's no begging him to stay. You know why they don't need him? Tank Dell, dude's a star. Nico Collins is like 6'3", 220. Baller. Throw another shrimp on the Barbie. Get on all the UFC 305 action live from the land down under at DraftKings Sportsbook, the official sports betting partner of the UFC. The middleweight title's on the line for the main event, but the card is stacked full of rip snorter blokes and shellas. And speaking of stacked, if you're new to DraftKings, listen up. New customers get $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use the code JOHN. That's code JOHN for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. UFC 305. It's going to be a ripper of a good time. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Mailbag, hot take. Trent Williams shouldn't be given a new contract. He was a liability in the Super Bowl, and his age has shown. I will say this. He kind of has the Niners by the balls. End of the day, they don't need Ayuk. I mean, they want Ayuk. He helps them. He's a really good player. But if push came to shove, they could trade him. They can't do that with Trent Williams. Even if Trent Williams isn't quite what he once was, he is so much better than you could combine all their offensive linemen. He's not as good as that guy. I just think he's got him in a weird spot. Now, like you said, he's a little older. He had a bad game. He also had a lot of great games. So you don't judge a man on the one game. I think what concerns one, I've heard he's asking for a lot of money, as he should. I mean, if I'm him, I want, like, at minimum these next 2 years, like 2 years, $60 million, all guaranteed. Whether we just add more guaranteed to the money, guarantee it all, but, like, that's what I would need. What are they going to say? No? Who are you going to play with? Jalen Moore? What are you going to do? That's where he really has them by the balls. So you just say no, and then you just hope. This is the hard part for the Niners. They could just drive a hard bargain on both guys. You know what, Brandon? You're going to play on $14 million contract, fifth-year option. You know what, Trent? You're going to play on your $20 million contract. Name me a human being behind Le'Veon Bell in the history of the world, maybe Dave Chappelle, whoever gives up a combined $34 million. It wouldn't happen. But you get angry guys who are two of your best players. So this is just, it's a complicated situation. You know, it really is. Question for the dog pound. Do you think Deshaun Watson has motivation anymore? Would love for Stefanski to have a legit quarterback in his system. Also, if you're ever in Virginia Beach, let's get a round in. You know, there's something special about just people saying, hey, if you're ever here, play golf. More than likely, I might never be there. And if I was, I probably wouldn't remember the DM that I read during the mailbag. But there's such a community aspect. Like, hey, come to Arizona, let's play some golf. Hey, you're coming to, I had a guy reach out. Hey, you're going to be in Nashville in a couple weeks. Hit me up. Let's play golf. You know, I know we got a bunch of wedding shit to do, but I'm going to play 3 rounds because your boy's already sneaking one in on Wednesday. Longtime listener, I have a golf mailbag question thought about hearing your open take about the tour playing more link-style golf. On the 4th of July, my buddy and I played Chambers Bay. That's a course in Seattle area. During our round, our caddy was saying that after the 2015 U.S. Open, the USGA was upset with the course and how tough it played. Chambers does not have any major PGA events lined up for the next 5-ish years. The tour could easily start playing a tournament yearly there and give the fans, TV audience, a tough link-style course without super long travel or changing TV times. Plus, it's downright gorgeous. He took me some pictures. Looks pretty awesome. You know, the problem, let's use football as an example. Do you think the Eagles, I was thinking about this today in the shower, because whatever happens in the Eagles-Packers game, we're going to have if the Packers defense still looks crappy or something's off with Jalen, there are going to be a lot of takes flying from this podcast here. But they're playing in Brazil. So is there a chance that it is just really weird for one of the teams, one of the players, some jet lag, whatever, just a game in Brazil? But why are they playing in Brazil? Because there is a governing body that is chosen by the owners, starting with Raj, who tries to do things in the best interests of the business. So you have cohesion from the top, even though no one's always going to agree. If I was on the Eagles or I was on the Packers, the last thing in the fucking world I'd want to do is to play a football game in Brazil. I'd be like, this is so stupid. Why couldn't we just play it? I don't know, in Philadelphia. But the league, who ultimately is trying to make the most money so the owners and the players profit, that's all they care about. And you could say sometimes that's not the right mindset to have, but it's the one they have. Yet in golf, there is no cohesion. You have all these independent contractors. Everyone complains. No one wants to do this. Everyone bitches and moans about this course is too hard. We don't want to travel to Europe to play the World Tour, live guys and all. It's like we got too many cooks in the kitchen. Say what you want about commissioners, and they take a lot of heat. There's one guy making a decision. Everyone has a suggestion. It is much harder to make a decision. And in golf, no one ever makes a decision. Yet in all these other entities, in team sports, it's like we're doing this, whether it works or not, but we're going to try it out. The in-season tournament, which everyone circle jerked on Twitter. You couldn't have paid me to watch. But at least they, we're going to do this. We're all in. Everyone's in. And golf's like, yeah, we'll try this. But then, no, it doesn't really work. And this guy's pissed off. And Tiger doesn't want to do this, even though he doesn't even play anymore. And he's 48 years old. It's like, what's going on? They just feel like they're lost at sea. And in 2025, you don't want to get lost. Because you get lost, might never see you again. I will, because I love it. I was watching it today, but I'm not the minority, or I'm not the majority. I'll promise you that much. I'm a Titans fan, sadly. I know it's early, but if Will Levis, let's just say league average, and the Titans end up with drafting the middle of the pack, would you look at drafting another quarterback, which would be the third quarterback drafted by us in the first 3 rounds in 3 years? Or would you look at drafting more help, whether it would be offense or defense? I heard you say you'll be in Nashville at the end of August. If you have time, I highly recommend playing Gaylord Springs. Only 10 minutes from the airport, and it's a beautiful link-style 72, par 72. I think I'm playing with a guy in the business at Brentwood Country Club. At least that's the plan of right now. I might only have time for 1 round because I got other shit to do. But ideally, I'd like to get 2 in. I played there before. Someone DM'd me their member there, but I played when I went out for a bachelor party at a place called Legends. My brother's a member at a Troon course and made a call, and I pretended I was him, and I played there. It was a pretty sweet track. The thing with Levis, it's funny. In the game the other night, Will Levis will not slide. He won't slide. And Vrabel used to drive him nuts. Then in the preseason game, he lowered his shoulder against this guy named D. Winters from TCU, who's like Dre Greenlaw 2.0. Not as good as Dre Greenlaw yet, but just runs around, tries to kill people. It's like, Will, you are going to get injured. Slide, bro. Like, what are you doing? That to me is the first thing. Like, you cannot not slide in the NFL. This is not the Mountain West. This, hell, in the SEC. Like, this is, all these guys will break your clavicle. They will break your arm. That's my first thing. Second, I don't think anyone in the building cares about Malik Willis being drafted, whatever he was, 3rd round a couple years ago. That's irrelevant. They took Will Levis in the 2nd round. This new GM did, but if he's not good enough, he's not good enough. And he's going to get, obviously, a long leash this year. He's going to be the full-time starter. They've added offensive weapons. How good are you? Or do you show any progress? Do you have any, future? Like, is it something to keep developing and keep working with? But to me, if he's average, I think he'd be done because this new coaching staff has zero connection to him. Zero. If you could have kept one team in a certain location, who would you have chosen? Chargers, San Diego, Raiders, Oakland, Rams, and St. Louis. To me, it's a no-brainer. You needed a team in LA. The stadium's sweet. Hosting Super Bowls. St. Louis stole the Rams from Los Angeles. That wasn't your team, St. Louis. Los Angeles has got their team back. So I'm putting the Rams in Los Angeles. Oakland couldn't function any longer. They're the only team in my lifetime who has lost 3 teams in like under 5 years. And you can bitch and moan and give me all these different reasons for every team. I don't give a shit. If it was one team, I'd hear you. All 3 teams next year, a place when I, was in radio, the Warriors played there, the A's played there, the Raiders played there. And in 2025, none of them will exist. The In-N-Out down the street had to shut down. Why? It's one of the best businesses in all of California because you get robbed nonstop. That area is so shitty. They had to go. And it's not feasible. I would say Oakland, California would be one of the last places that have had major sports teams that you would ever put a sports team in 2025. So I feel like the Raiders in Vegas is a no-brainer. Vegas is a booming. And that stadium is awesome. It changed their franchise. Obviously, they lost, the home crowd, but financially, they couldn't function there. And you couldn't function in the area in which they were functioning. That strip, 66 and Hagenberger, is just awful. I mean, it is an absolute dump. So to me, it'd be the Chargers of San Diego. But I don't think that people go, will they ever go back? They're never going back. They just spent hundreds of millions of dollars on this new facility in Southern California. They pay $1 rent with Kroenke. They're just never going back. First-time mailbagger. You said you like the Saints to make the playoffs this year, but are not a fan of Dennis Allen or Derek Carr at this point in time in your career. What's your reasoning in trusting the Saints when the 2 most important pieces of a franchise are a big question mark? Well, Derek didn't play well the first half of last season. He played really, really bad. And the last half of the season, the last 5 games, he was really good. Well, this year he has an offensive coordinator who's a real offensive coordinator and going to run an offense that quarterbacks thrive in Clint Kubiak. I don't like Dennis Allen relative to the top head coaches, but he is a good defensive coordinator. And they went 9-8 last year. Their defense is going to be solid. Their offense was an embarrassment. Well, if their offense isn't an embarrassment and they're good on defense, because Dennis is a good defensive coordinator, couldn't they be a 10-11 win team? I just think it's possible. Now, part of the reason I like the bet is the value. You can just get good odds. There aren't good odds on the Atlanta Falcons winning the division. And on paper, you're like, this team's way better. It's true. But you just don't get very good odds. I like the Saints simply because they went 9-8 last year. They were literally a game away from being in the playoffs. And the odds are they're more like a 6-7 win team. And to me, it's just Derek. You can't rely on Derek to play like Tom Brady. If you're going to try to have him throw 40 times a game and just pick you apart and carry you, that's not a winning formula throughout a season. If you hit play action, you get him on the move, you run the ball, which this system is going to do, it will work. He can be a top 15 quarterback. So to me, it's more of a value proposition than I love the team. A lot of people say that there are 2 ways to build a Super Bowl contending team. The young quarterback on his rookie contract with a stacked team, or a great defense with good quarterback play. What's your thought process on good quarterbacks like Tua, Dak, and Cousins, then draft high-end wide receiver and keep the offense young and fresh. Never pay a running back because it's more common than not. After 4 years, you let them walk. With college producing consistently good skill positions and seems like you can get them all the way into the third round, if you stuck to the plan, you'd never get the awkwardness that 49ers are dealing with or the risk of paying a running back and getting injured quickly after paying him a high contract. Well, here's the problem with what you just said, is you assume you hit on draft picks. So it's like, just let him go and draft a guy. Okay, we draft a guy. Like the Niners did. I think they were like, okay, Ayuk might not sign this contract. Let's draft this dude in the first round, Ricky Pearsall from Florida. Then he's been hurt in OTAs and training camp. So I'm supposed to play real games when I don't even know if this guy can stay healthy. I'm just using the Niners example because I just know like the details of they drafted a running back really high, already injured. So you can be like, oh, just let this guy walk, draft these guys. Teams do that all the time. Just draft this guy. Okay, I hear you. Well, okay, I'll just draft this guy in the third round. We'll draft this guy in the second round. Well, is that guy Bobby Wagner or Fred Warner, or does that guy just turn into a special team or average practice squad guy? Because when you draft him, you're like, I really like him. Hell yeah. And then all of a sudden the games start and you're like, this guy's not very good. I mean, it happens all the time. That's why teams, once you have a player who is good, usually pays them. Because there is no guarantee. And I love the draft as much as anyone. But just because I give you 3 second-round picks. If I gave you 3 second-round picks, whoever your team is, you play the season out, you go like, shit, we got a couple guys that we don't want to pay. A running back, let him walk. Let's say we got Saquon and we got some corner, let them walk. And we'll draft a corner and a running back in the second round. What if that guy's not any good? You're going to think he's good when you draft him, but then you actually have to play in the NFL. So it's more complicated than it sounds. It's so easy to talk like in theory. Every professor thinks they're a genius on the board in a classroom. It's like, yeah, in reality, like, yeah, in theory, the supply, demand, inflation, all. Then there's the real world. Like, no one's buying our product. Like, what are we supposed to do? We took all the steps, followed all the textbooks. It ain't working. Hey, let this guy walk. Use your second round pick on a linebacker. Fill his role. Okay. We'll draft this dude from Florida State or from Texas or wherever. Then midway through training camp, you're like, he can't really understand our defense. He doesn't know where he's going. But hey, he was dominating against Oklahoma and Ole Miss. It's more difficult than that. Now, I hear what you're saying. It's why it's hard, I would say, in football, just like any business, to have like hard set rules. Like, no matter what, we will let this guy go. No matter what, we won't pay this position. And then you get Christian McCaffrey, or you get Alvin Kamara, or you get whatever, you name the position. Most teams like, I don't love paying middle linebackers. I hear that all the time. Well, have you ever played with Roquan Smith on your defense? Have you had Fred Warner or Luke Kuechly on your defense? Because you put those guys in your defense, see like, yeah, we'll let that guy walk. We'll just draft a guy. It's just not going to happen. So I hear what you're saying. And I do understand, because it's easy to go, well, you haven't been winning shit with CD Lamb anyway. And Jared would be like, well, we're winning 12 regular season games. We can't win any playoff games. Like, okay, so let's get rid of CD because we haven't got over the hump. I'm just giving a hypothetical. Trade him right now. Have some team give you a couple ones. I mean, are you winning 8 games in the regular season? We wouldn't even give ourselves a chance. You're like, well, use those picks and you're just trying to draft another wide receiver. That's the thing. It's like, okay, let's say the 49ers trade Brandon Ayuk this weekend. They just trade him. They would need another wide receiver in the draft next year. They would draft another guy who they'd be hoping to be Brandon Ayuk. No different if you trade CeeDee Lamb. I know they're not going to, or Jamar Chase or anything. You just be trying to find another guy like that. And there's no guarantee you can. So even if you draft another wide receiver, who knows?